Somebody's listening to us and has just driven off with the headset, so it's edit points.
It was the truck beeping.
Yeah.
It was like,
Welcome to Cloud Realities Live, a conversation show exploring the practical and exciting alternate realities that can be unleashed through cloud-driven transformation. I'm Dave Chapman.
I'm Sjoukje.
and I'm Rob Kernahan.
And we are here on day 2 of Google Next 2024 in Las Vegas. In today's show, we are going to dig into when industries meet AI. So the practical implementations and opportunities to implement across 3 different industries, which include insurance, supply chain, and manufacturing. So we'll dig into that today with 3 excellent Google guests, which are going to be Nigel Walsh, the Managing Director of Insurance at Google Cloud, Paula Natoli, the Head of Google Supply Chain for Strategic Industries at Google Cloud, and Fabien Duboeuf, the Industry Manager for Manufacturing. But we'll come to that in a second. What's it been like for the last 24 hours? What are the thoughts on Google Next so far this year?
There's definitely a fair bit of energy on the old floor. I quite like it. Sometimes when you come to these expos, it can be very overwhelming.
Right.
But it's quite a nice setup. I'm going to go for one of the nicest setups I've been in with a nice vibe to it. I'm getting good vibes.
Yeah.
Good vibes.
What's standing out for you?
Well, the first thing is it's well spaced, so you're not just in crowds all the time, which makes a big difference. And then it's very, it's not a very technical thing, but it's very colourful and vibrant. I like it.
It is nicely
It's appealing on the old eye.
It is. Sjoukje, what's standing out for you?
I walked around the expo floor today, and what's standing out for me is really heavily developer focused.
Yeah, that is a good point, yeah. There's a whole have you been over to the coding zone? There's a whole coding zone in the corner with hundreds of seats where you just go put your head down and try some stuff.
Yeah.
For the builder.
For the builder.
All for the builder.
For the builder.
Yeah.
So just standing out to me, my feet are really hurting.
Oh, mate. You've got new shoes, though, haven't you? You've done the classic. I'm going to buy a new pair of shoes and then go to an expo in them.
And it's the second day I've worn them. It's the day 2 problem, definitely, that I'm regretting. I've got a blister now.
That's schoolboy, though, that day.
Thankfully, though, Marcel brought some blister pads with him.
Yeah.
What were they called again, Marcel?
Compete. Learn from Rob.
I know.
Yeah. He's my grandmaster.
I've got them in my bag as well.
You know what it is?
It's
your practical travel tips.
Hey, always ready.
They really paid off today.
They did.
I've actually managed to be still mobile.
What I like there is I paid it forward. So Marcel had exactly the same issue. I provided. He's obviously learned from that, and now it's passed down to you.
Does that mean I have to bring Compede next time we come to one of these things?
Yeah. It's like a proud father of travel strategy, deploying knowledge to the group.
I will do that. Now, we set Marcel a challenge. After the extremely impressive unrippable paper of yesterday, we said to Marcel, you got 5 minutes. Well, actually what we said was, Marcel, before we do the record today, go and find something. Obviously, he didn't bother doing that. So just before we started the record instead, we said, you've now got 5 minutes to go and find some swag that we can have a look at. So Marcel, what you come up with?
It was a hard task. So I found a sort of mini American football, but a very small one. And it's a stress ball. So
That's right. You need a lot of that, though. Stress ball. That's good for you.
yeah, it's good for me.
Because you have a very stressful job because you don't do anything for us.
So I keep this. So that's for me. So then I have for Sjoukje, I have something. So it's a bouncing ball. So it's a light.
It's now rolling across the booth.
There's a lot of ball themes.
Let me go get the ball.
Themes.
Beautiful.
So, and because I like Dave with his sort of black and white stuff, I think bring some color. So it's red, white socks. So that's for you.
I actually legitimately quite like those, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think it's good.
And so they're a pair of Fastly socks. Actually, though,
they're not going to fit you, Dave.
They're a bit small.
They would let her fit a baby.
I think it's for
Let's at
10-year-olds.
least stretch. Yeah.
Well, my kids are going to enjoy them myself, so thank you very much indeed.
So, and for Rob, I know he's into gaming, so I found for him a sort of gaming mouse pad, but it's really...
Ooh, that's nice,
really
actually.
long.
There, you can stick your keyboard and your mouse on it, and that's going to work very
Are there
well.
any? Was anybody giving away mice, Marcel?
I didn't see any. No.
No. Well, do you remember when Rob tried to?
Yeah,
He was like,
It wasn't...
confidently, "Don't worry, I need it. I've forgotten my mouse, but I'll be able to get one, a swag one." Have you ever seen a swag mouse since then? In the last 2 years, Robert?
And I plead the fifth on that. Since I'm in America, I'm going to plead the Fifth Amendment.
Well, excellent podcasting there from Robert. Thank you very much. All right, so let's talk about announcements and themes. Sjoukje, what have you heard?
Yeah, today was the developer keynote. And in that keynote, they did a bit of a deep dive on the topics that were already announced yesterday. So, but there are some really interesting ones. The first one is around Code Assist, the code completion and assistance tool. And this also comes with Gemini 1.5 Pro, which means that you have a 1 million token window that you can use.
And what does that allow you to do?
You can put huge files in it, huge coding files.
And then what happens?
And then what?
No, Dave, that's it. That's all it is.
And it can use that as a source. So you can put more data into it to get an outcome out of it.
I see.
So that's one. And you can also use Gemini across the entire application development lifecycle now. So it's in all sorts of tools. There is Cloud Assist, which can help you to simplify your cloud tasks with AI. And it can give you support for design, deployment, troubleshooting, and optimization. Gemini is added to BigQuery. So you can now also have an AI-powered experience for data preparation and analysis. And it is added to Looker, which is Google's reporting and dashboard creating tool, which allows you to chat with your business data.
Right.
Ooh, I've always had that. Ask your digital assistant what's going on in my business today. We're getting closer, aren't we? That's it.
Yeah, we definitely
Dashboards.
get close to that.
I tell you what, the dashboard hasn't got long left. It's going to be a voice prompt that tells you what's going on.
Just natural language questioning.
Yeah, it'll be natural language approach. The other thing I spotted in there is automation again of platform engineering popping up. So another industry that may well be affected by this is the day-to-day activities of the platform engineer may well reduce.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're heading towards ultra high levels of automation just generally within the tech stack.
It was always this vision of no ops, which is the completely zero friction platform. It just does it for you. But I think actually with AI, we're starting to edge towards no ops a lot more. And then the voice just prompts you and say, you need to worry about this today.
And from a developer point of view, Sjoukje, when you bring all of the threads together that you're seeing, what does it mean in summary to you? Like, what's the uplift from a developer perspective?
Yeah, it basically means that for each and every task as a developer that you are doing, you can now use your AI assistant to support you in it.
And what does that mean?
That means
so what's the advantage I would get as a developer?
For instance, if you have questions around code, or you want to know what it is actually doing, or you want some help on building code blocks, it can assist you with all these steps. It can also automatically create documentation for you, test cases. So it really speeds up development.
Right. And what's your gut feel just from seeing stuff about the percentage speed increase?
There are numbers. I think I saw in a slide something like 40%.
Right. Do you buy that?
I don't know. It really depends. It depends on the project, the level of maturity of the developer itself. It depends. I'm always a bit cautious with these numbers.
Cool. Well, we'll keep an eye on it. Any others today, or was that the?
That was it. That was it.
So I think you said that from an announcements point of view, what they're really doing is doing a lot of announcement on the first day and then digging deep over the conference. Is that? Have you seen anything in those deep dives that has struck you as being particularly surprising?
No, not really surprising, to be honest. There were some demos around the code assistance. They looked very well, but not really surprising.
Right.
No.
maybe the bubble on the Gen AI wonder has popped. And now we're so used to it and our expectations are set so high, we're like, meh.
Maybe. I think for me, I'm hoping that we're coming out of the rhetoric phase of it and now going into the phase of like, well, there's hard implementation going on here, both in terms of the tool set. And I think in terms of the tool set, it seems like there is like some compelling implementation there, extensions of, Copilot effectively for developers, or MechSuit for developers. And I'm interested in the fact that there is tangible implementation of this AI tooling in tooling itself, like MechSuit style.
Exactly, yeah.
And what I'm really searching for is industrial implementation,
wide-scale deployment. Yeah.
Wide-scale deployment. So hopefully, in terms of our conversations today, we're going to dig into where industries meet AI. So as I said at the top of the show, we're going to have 3 conversations today. The first one with Nigel Walsh around the insurance industry. The second one with Paula Natoli around supply chain and the use of AI within supply chain. And then finally, Fabien Duboeuf, and we'll talk there around manufacturing and experience. So without further ado, let's go to our conversations. We are going to jump into the world of insurance. And joining us is Nigel Walsh, Head of Global Insurance at Google Cloud. Nigel, good to see you. Thanks for making the time.
Delighted to be back on the microphone with you guys. And I'm also delighted to hear you say delighted to get into insurance, because my whole mantra and mission is make insurance lovable.
Make insurance exciting.
Make it a dinner party conversation that everybody loves, yeah?
There you go. And
That's the one.
You've all smiled for a reason, because no one typically loves insurance. There's a very small select group of us. And I am definitely leading the charge on it.
What's the magic in it for you then?
I think people don't genuinely have a good understanding of what it is, what it does, or more importantly, the purpose it has in society. Nothing moves without insurance.
Right.
You can't get on a train, you won't get on a plane, you can't go to the office. We are literally the grease that lets society move. All the way back, and it's got a wonderful history as well, back to Lloyd's of London. It's just brilliant. It's stooped in history. It's phenomenal. And actually, back to where we are today, it's one of the biggest industries with the hugest opportunity for AI.
Well, it's certainly, immensely data rich as an industry. So it is a perfect shooting ground for AI. But let's come to that in a second.
By the end of this, you will tell me, actually, I'm quite excited by insurance.
Is going to get a t-shirt, I love insurance.
I've got one. I literally have one that says, make insurance lovable.
I will take that challenge on. Let's see where we get to in about 20 minutes, shall we? But let's actually go back to the sort of the mechanism of insurance and the sort of the history of it. So obviously it's been around for a while, and as of about 10 years ago, broadly, in broad strokes, how did the industry function? And what I'm looking to do here is draw a comparison to where we are now with it as an industry and the impact of digital and cloud on that industry.
Yeah, it's really interesting in that insurance has been around.
Just to note that you keeping saying it's interesting doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to lose my bet about whether I'm going to find it lovable by the end of the show.
You've lost your bet already, I promise you.
You think? Yeah, I'm already in.
All
I just don't know it yet.
You're on the hook already, Dave. You just don't know it.
The reels are getting reeled in.
I learned this one by one we're coming in. I hope they're recording this. I'm really good at the fishing reel. You go back 10 years or 20 years or 30 years, it doesn't make a difference. But the insurance world, the business of insurance hasn't fundamentally changed. People often used to call, especially in London and knives and forks industries, around people. How I buy insurance in the UK versus the US versus Asia is actually all very, very different as well.
Right.
But you'll know brokers and agents and stuff like that. In the UK, it's all very much price comparison websites and digital already. And actually say the UK is probably 10 years ahead or more mature in terms of digital than many other territories and geographies. But it's a price comparison website, not a value comparison website, whereas you get on there and go, give me the cheapest price, especially in cost of living crisis and lots of other things that are going on. But how we do business hasn't really changed. Go back to Edward Lloyd for Lloyd's in London. It was a information exchange about shipping and shipping lanes and so much more over a coffee. And here we are with coffee at a conference sharing information. So not much of that has changed. Roll on digitization, we're then going, actually, how do I take that information and make it easily or more accessible to other people by putting it into a format and making it easier to get from point A to point B to point C?
Right.
So I think there's a whole evolution of insurance over time that has gone in the same way that we've done typewriters to computers to internet and so much more. Insurance has just gone through that. I often talk about it as evolution to revolution. So we're going through this early phase of evolution. The revolution that's about to come is we are sitting on vast amounts of data. What is it I know about Dave, whether it's your smart watch, your smart home, your smart car, that will give me better insights to price your risk in a more fair and accurate way to say, actually, I'm healthy, I don't drink, I don't go to bars late. You're still smiling now. I drive safely, not after drinking. And all those things to say, we've actually got an accurate reflection of that sort of stuff. 10 years ago, that was harder to do. Today, that's table stakes for every insurer.
Right.
So how we bring all of those things together and shift from a world of product-centric or policy-centric to customer-centric is really, really important for us.
And where is the industry on that journey? How would you how far through that journey would you characterize it?
We've definitely started. We're definitely past go. It depends on the country and the geography and the line of business. And when I say line, I mean property and casualty or general insurance is way further ahead than life insurance because the transformation cycle in P&C is usually every 7 years and it renews annually.
Right.
Whereas life insurance, you buy and kind of forget sometimes and go, it's a 40-year thing. So it differs depending on the line of the business and where you buy it. But we've definitely made massive inroads both on the core systems, number one, but number two, how we engage. So your ability to buy online and service online and change things online is definitely here, but there's pockets of brilliance. Now the question is how do we join all those dots up and meet the expectations that we've got, whether we're in a retailer or a utility or everything else that we do in terms of, everyday experiences that we have elsewhere.
Right.
And I think that's a really important point, though, that consumer experience associated with how I get my insurance, because I need it everywhere in my life, yeah? Yep. And I will actually, as long as the price isn't absolutely totally different, I will actually choose an insurer that has a better digital experience because they're easy to interact with than one that has a more clunky experience. You can still see them joining the systems together and the way the flow works through the app or the website. And I think it does actually affect consumer behavior.
Well, it's convenience, right? So with a banking app, you look at your bank typically much more frequently than you look at your insurance. Your insurance, you probably look at either a renewal, you've moved house, there's been a life event of sorts, or you've had an accident.
Yeah.
Right? That's the only reason typically you look at those things. So how do we go from a being there for you when you need us to actually engaging with you in different ways? Imagine I said to you, Dave, I've seen that you've been driving differently. Here's the things that you should be doing or could be doing that would reduce your premium or improve your safety.
Right.
Or in the same way, hey, Dave, the same way that your watch might tell you, hey, stand up for today, get more steps in. They're all about making you live longer, healthier lives. And that's a really good point about how we get you to engage in different ways.
Right, yeah. It was occurring to me as you were describing the shift to customer centricity, how similar it was to the shift that's going on in health at the moment.
Yep.
Where actually it's about behavioral monitoring that can then be used to create more intelligent products, better responses, etc.
I'd actually call it insights rather than monitoring.
It's probably a better word.
All the data's there. So I run, I cycle, I do yoga, I do loads of exercise. If I knew from my Whoop, from my Fitbit, from my Apple Watch, what I should be doing and how I should be recovering, and that information was given to me and given to my health insurer to get me a better policy or product, that's in everyone's interests.
Right.
So it's all about, if you read Peter Attia's Outlive, he talks about lifespan versus health span. There's no point having a really long lifespan if you're not healthy throughout those last 20 years.
Quality of life as you go through it.
1,000%.
Wouldn't need particularly sophisticated technology to track your yoga, would it?
or my lack of. I'm going to outsource it, so I'm going to find a really fit, healthy, energetic person to put my monitoring band on.
All the stories are there, right? We've all seen the stories about how someone's dog was wearing their Fitbit or whatever else.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we're cheating ourselves, and I haven't got a dog, so it's on me.
Yeah, that's it. So tell us then about Google's interface into the world of insurance. What in terms of the product set is particularly applying? I mean, it's an obvious and open question because there are some very obvious synergies in all of this. But like, set the table for us.
Yeah, I mean, you said it out properly at the outset. Insurance manufactures nothing other than data.
Yeah.
And if you think about Google's role in the world is organizing the world's information and making it universally accessible,
right.
We have the most perfect opportunity to lean in with insurers world over and help them organize that data. I've yet to meet an insurer that says my data's all organized because of, regulation, change, M&A, divestment. It's always changing.
Right.
So our role in that space is phenomenal. You then layer on all the capabilities and applications, whether it's Gen AI or Doc AI or Contact Center AI, and moving from the core foundational layer up into things like how we engage and interact and do so much more, and then into things like Looker, where we can give you conversational access to your behavior or your property or your assets and so much more. At every single level of that layer, we have the opportunity to engage in it with insurers, right from foundation all the way up to engagement, to say, how do we make your lives easier and ultimately your customers' lives easier as you engage? And we've got brilliant clients together with Capgemini that we're working with, whether it's, there's some great examples out there. A subrogation claim in the insurance auto space that's looking at legal environments that would have taken hours and hours of effort to analyze and read and review T's and C's or reports or whatever else. Imagine giving that to a machine and saying, summarize this for me and tell me what the answer would be with links back to where it was.
Right.
So what I want to do is make the role of insurance, whether you're a claims adjuster, an underwriter, a legal reviewer, whatever your role is inside insurance, I want to make sure we pay you to do your job, not to do the swivel chair integration between lots of busy tasks that don't add any value to it. We can take all that toil away.
Right. And in terms of announcements at Next this year that's applying specifically to the world of insurance, what have you seen that's particularly resonant, do you think?
Yeah, there's loads. I mean, Gemini, obviously, and what we're up to, so a couple of things actually. So Gemini number 1, Vertex number 2. On the Gemini side, one of my favorite examples right now that we'll be demonstrating to clients is, imagine a world where we have a dash cam in your car or your commercial fleet and they're involved in an accident. Imagine taking that video footage with the permission of the fleet holder and using a multimodal model to analyze that frame by frame. So you no longer now have a human analyzing the case to understand what went on. Gemini Vision Pro can look at that as an example, tell you what happened frame by frame by frame, and in the demonstration that the team in Germany built, it shows you that a cyclist ran a red light and hit a vehicle. Imagine not having to do that for every single incident that happens, but having the model do it for you and drop that straight into the claims record. It's better for the agent, it's better for the customer, and it's better for everyone involved because we now pay the claim out much faster.
Right.
I mean, if you got really, really tight on the integration of that, you could have the claim paid out before you'd finish crashing.
Well, actually, I remember years ago, Jean Lassangardi in Capgemini used to talk about being there at the event, after the event, or before the event. And the industry, joking aside, is moving from a world of predict to prevent.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, we just don't want you to have claims in the first place. If you don't have any claims and we have no interaction, that's a problem because you've got no reason to love your insurer. Dave's smiling here. You can't see it, but Dave's smiling.
5 minutes left.
Right? So what we'll do is, back to your point about the insights that we've got. Imagine I said to you, Dave, you've left the UK, you're in Las Vegas for a conference, you've left your fridge door open.
Oh, that would cause me lots of issues.
The very thought you've said that has just triggered my anxiety.
Well, to be fair,
You've left the iron on. I'm like, I'm 10,000 miles away. What am I going to
I
do?
hadn't even thought about it until you said it.
I was going to
now
say,
I'm wondering about it.
I was going to say my wife would, if my wife was listening to this, she'd be going, we'd be like 3,000 miles away. She goes, did I plug out the hair straighteners? I'm like, well, it's not my problem because I've got no hair. But equally, we worry about these sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the things like Capgemini are developing around Home OS and Connected Home, and the ability to actually understand, interact, turn those things on and off, That's really powerful for an insurance company.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed it is. Indeed it is. And AI generally then, in terms of its implementation in the industry, how mature is it? What we're trying to get to the bottom of in a number of the shows over the course of this week is, there's lots of talk about AI, but, where is it being materially implemented in a way that's kind of sort of next generation in its usage? So have you got any observations on where insurance as an industry are with that?
Yeah, they're actually more mature than people would expect. And one of the CEOs, Evan Greenberg from Chubb, came out a few weeks back and talked about using AI and have been using AI for many, many years. And that's really, really important. Insurers, whether it's underwriting or claims or elsewhere, have been doing this for a really, really long time. Gen AI bursts on the scene and everyone just jumps up into arms and go, oh, look, we can use Gen AI.
Right.
And I think it's important to note that Gen AI on its own isn't necessarily the answer. It's probably wrong to call it traditional AI, but insurers have been using AI for years, and that's great. Machine learning, artificial intelligence. If you're using machine learning to understand and do repetitive tasks that we've always done, and you combine that with Gen AI, you actually have the perfect combination of doing deterministic stuff and understanding on the number side, and then the generative stuff to go, actually, let's summarize that based on the numbers and go back out. So actually, they're far more mature than people expect. But with the launch of Gen AI and our Vertex AI model garden using everyone else's models as well, I actually think the opportunity for insurers is second to none.
Right.
And actually, I think the World Economic Forum, there's a panel back in January that talked about the chart that they had. One of the big shifts that I found really interesting was, you go back 5 or 6 years, insurance underwriters were the number one role that, one of the big consultancies out there were saying, we'll have jobs removed. Yeah. And that was always oh God, AI is here to take our roles. The big shift now is the word moved from take our jobs to augment our jobs.
Yeah, the mech suit version of AI.
And I think that's really helped insurers become less fearful of, we're going to be displaced, to how does it augment our life to make our lives much easier going forward. And that's been really big for us.
And if if we were having this conversation 18 months ago, obviously Gen AI wouldn't have even been in the conversation. So if you cast forward 12 or 18 months, what kind of impacts do you think you could foresee from where you are right now?
Yeah, I think I always call it table stakes. So what we're doing around document ingestion on claims and submissions and underwriting, I think is table stakes for every carrier that's out there. They'll all be doing that. If you fast forward 12 or 18 months, we'll actually get to the next level of nitty-gritty things that we can do, because the data will be organized in a better format. We'll have our core foundations in place. And now we'll start to get into things like, well, actually, is the policy for Dave or the policy for Rob the same policy? Rob's a 63-year-old healthy man. Dave's 41 and obviously very big into yoga. Should we be offering you the same
Thank God somebody has finally recognized the reality of the situation. I'm glad you came on.
I think my AI, my actual intelligence, might be off here. But you know what I mean? I mean, is it really the same policy for everyone? Or using this vast amount of data and insights that we've now got, could we develop things that are more personalized for you and more relevant going forward? I think that's going to become much easier to do going forward.
And what will that feel like as a consumer of it? Will it mean that my insurances and my premiums are cheaper? Or will it mean that my claim process is better? Or will it mean that my experience of taking out insurance is the first? Or is it a combination of those things?
It's all of the above. And I wouldn't necessarily I wouldn't say cheaper, because you've gone straight to price comparison. Yeah. What if I said to you your risk level was at the right price? Because you don't want a cheap policy that doesn't pay out.
That's true. That is very
There's
good
no
point.
point turning up. I had this debate online the other day where in North America, a lady was rejected insurance because an aerial image of her roof said it wasn't fit for purpose, therefore we weren't going to write it. Now, under inspection, it turned out that it was fit for purpose, but the insurance company didn't want it. My analogy was, you wouldn't walk into the doctor and say, hey, I've got a tummy ache, and expect the doctor to go, oh, it's that, without doing an examination or doing bloods or whatever else. We don't want to do the guesswork. So AI, for me, is taking out all the guesswork and saying, actually, Dave, you're this age, I'm sorry, this is the right price for you, and if anything goes wrong, don't worry, I've got you. Do you want peace of mind or do you want price?
Very good. And
see, you're smiling now. You're falling in love.
He loves it.
He's falling in love.
Next dinner party with Dave, just make sure you're not sat next to him, otherwise you're getting an insurance bomb.
I think I'm going to dream about this tonight. Never heard anything so beautiful, Nigel. Thank you for sharing it with us.
I'm delighted. Honestly, when I say to you, let's make insurance lovable and make it lovable for the people that work in it day in, day out. We have a phenomenal opportunity out there.
Well, amazing. Thank you again for spending some time with us. Now, we end every episode of this podcast by asking our guests what they're excited about doing next, and that could be something fun you've got planned whilst you're here in Vegas, or it could be something in your professional life. So, Nigel, what are you excited about doing next?
Well, so other than sleep, and you can hear from my voice, sleep is very much lacking.
Is that a bit of jet lag thing or a staying out too late thing?
It's actually not neither of those. It's actually talking too much, which you already know because I've spent the last 20 minutes with you.
Yeah.
What I'm excited by, I've literally got a month of travel seeing clients.
Oh, wow.
And there's nothing I love more than going out, as you now know, and talking about what we're up to and helping clients figure this out going forward. So that's what gets me excited.
And is that a global trip?
It's actually most of April's in North America.
North America, nice. Any? We'll leave the clients to one side, but any specific cities you're going to that you're excited about?
I've not been to Chicago for a long time, so I headed up to Chicago.
Lake Michigan.
I'm probably not going to see the lake other than from the plane. And other than that, it's just literally taking the announcements that we've made over the last few days here at Next and bringing that to life for carriers. There's nothing I love more. You guys were on stage with ACG yesterday. This year, I think we've got 14 insurance sessions. Last year, we had 4 or 3.
Wow.
That just shows you how insurance is becoming
more lovable.
Hey.
Spreading the love of insurance.
Spreading the love of insurance.
How many next year? That's my big question to the team. So is it 14 or is it 40?
Right. Well, I mean, you can see the sense of scale in the whole conference this year is well up from last year. As I understand, it's like a 30-40% increase in attendees, if nothing else.
We were limited by space last year. I think it was 20,000 in San Francisco. I think we're at 30,000 here in Vegas or thereabouts. It's a long way away from me.
I'm glad you raised that, Nigel, because on yesterday's show, Marcel very helpfully came in and prompted us on those numbers. And Robert, my co-host here, was very damning and dismissing of his accuracy.
I may have suggested he made it up on the spot.
You did. How do you feel about that now? Have you got anything to say to Marcel, Robert?
I'm very sorry, Marcel. You were right.
I don't think Rob actually used any of his AI or looked at the facts and figures, but okay.
He doesn't know how to work it. Like, he comes on here and bangs on about it all the time, but when it actually comes down to work, he's like, David, don't tell anyone, but I actually don't know how to work AI.
That's a really interesting point. Your question about making it practical and usable is really interesting. Because actually, we've got to make it real. Those use cases are really important.
Exactly. Well, Nigel, wonderful to see you today. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.
We're going to continue our investigation about how AI is intersecting with industries, and we're going to talk about the rise of supply chain, a sort of a nascent thing until relatively recently, but actually when you dig into it, not only has it got profound implications for how we live our lives, but it's also got some profound implications for the planet. And I am delighted to say that Paula Natoli, head of global supply chains for strategic industries at Google Cloud, is with us. I feel that needs an acronym.
Everything needs an acronym, so I'm going to have to figure that out.
Welcome. It's great to see you.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And now, how's your conference been so far?
Busy.
Yeah, right.
I think with a conference this big, it's so difficult to be able to see everything that you want to see or attend all the sessions.
Yeah.
So it's been extremely busy, but that goes to show the excitement and the areas of innovation that are captivating everyone, really.
Right. Well, and one of the things we've heard from a number of the guests, and also we've observed ourselves, is just what a much bigger scale Next is at this year.
Oh yeah. Which is wonderful. Again, you see the level of interest rising, and then of course for all of us in supply chain, what I'm trying to do is to optimize my steps from point A to point B. So bigger in terms of venue as well, right?
Everything is a 25-minute walk.
It is.
And as nice as the facility we're in the Mandalay Bay Hotel Conference Center. It's a very nice facility, but I will say, not enough Starbucks. Other coffee platforms are available, but actually trying to get a coffee is non-trivial.
Well, see, I'm good on that. I am not a coffee drinker.
Oh, that makes it easy.
Oh, yeah.
What's your conference beverage of choice?
Oh, no. Now we're getting into deep, dark secrets.
Exactly.
I'm a soda drinker. Give me a Diet Mountain Dew or a couple, and yeah, I'm good.
You're right. Mountain Dew. What would you describe the flavor of Mountain Dew as?
Oh God, I don't think I want to.
Yeah, don't think about it. Just think of its refreshing.
Just drink it. Exactly.
Well, it's great to see you. And then let's dig into this notion of supply chain first of all, before we talk about the impact AI is having on it. And actually, it's probably one of the better coming togethers of technology and sort of ultra complex global logistics. So let's start with, as of a few years ago, people didn't really talk about supply chain, certainly not as much as they do now, unless you were inside the world of supply chain. So maybe let's start with some real basics. First of all, what is it and how does it impact most consumers' lives? And then what changes have you seen? Why are we suddenly hearing so much about it?
Well, of course, we kind of had this little thing called the pandemic, right? But, it's funny, Dave. I've spent my entire career in supply chain. My undergrad was actually a supply chain degree. I'm one of those that actually used the degree that I wonder what percentage
of the world's graduates.
I don't know.
Fascinating, wouldn't it, to actually work that out about, do you actually do what your degree was in?
I did construction economics.
Did you?
My degree.
Really?
I did, yeah.
I wouldn't have pegged you as that as your degree, but there you go.
I sort of fell into it.
Every day's a school day, Dave.
Yeah, exactly.
But interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
So I've been in supply chain and supply chain tech my entire career. And honestly, thanks to the pandemic, I guess I'm going to give some type of credit. I don't have to explain what I do anymore.
Yeah, right.
People talk supply chain. It's postered across your grocery stores, due to supply chain issues.
Right.
So we get the bad rap, right? That's how we're
the blame
known.
For everything. Yeah.
We get the blame when something is wrong. Now people talk supply chain, but I think supply chains power everything. Right. It's the backbone of the economy. It's the backbone of going to the store and getting your groceries. It's the backbone of healthcare and services and vaccines and everything. So it powers absolutely everything. And when it runs smoothly, no one talks about it.
Yeah.
Right. So now, thanks to all these disruptions that we've been having, whether it was the pandemic, whether it is the blockage of the Suez Canal, or I'm near Baltimore. You saw the recent bridge collapse.
Oh, yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So those are disrupting supply chains all the time. You think about now, you don't have that port to go to unload. How do I reroute? What was on that ship? Where was it going? All of these disruptions are causing the focus on supply chain resiliency more so than we've ever seen before.
I think in the pandemic, we learned how fragile it had actually become. And this tiny little, well, it wasn't a tiny little knock, but this knock suddenly sent everything into chaos, didn't it? Ships, there were photos of loads of container ships just sat at port, static. Specifically as well, the supply chain in the 20 years before the pandemic had been globalizing.
Yes.
So then you get something that effectively shuts down global trade routes and pretty much everything else. It's devastatingly difficult to recover from.
It is. And so when you now start to see the rise of all of that and you start to kind of peel back the onion on, well, how can we do better? It's data. It is all data. And if you look at the world's global supply chain operating all of that, it is sitting on tons and tons and tons of data. But yet organizations haven't figured out 100% how to harness it, how to actually leverage it to maybe better predict when a disruption is going to happen, or do levels of scenario planning to say, if this happens, here is what I'm going to do. So that intersection of now data and AI with supply chain is opening up these new doors.
So if you looked at what's going on in the world of supply chain, let's call it supply chain science for want of a better term, over the last 5 or 6 years, as digital transformation is coming of age, what observations would you make in terms of the progress and the changes that you're seeing already? And then in a second, then we'll cast forward a little bit and look at what might come next.
Yeah, I would say the changes and the pace of transformation is accelerating. I'll almost equate it to, everyone says the retail industry has seen more change in the past X number of years thanks to e-com, right? And it's accelerated the pace of change. Well, just look at it in the same realm of I'm not delivering all those e-com packages without a supply chain that can also support it. So we are accelerating in that same type of pace of change more so than we have in the past. So there, one example I give, I mentioned, I've been in supply chain my whole career. When I first started, I was doing consulting work and implementations. And you always knew where supply chain was in the corporate mindset.
Right.
Based upon where you were positioned in the office.
Much like IT departments.
Right? Exactly, right? We were in the same. So I was in the basement, no windows, or I was in a trailer outside of a manufacturing facility.
Right.
Now we're in the boardroom, right?
So
it's everything continues to evolve and accelerate, and then you have the thanks to all these disruptions that are now putting us in a new realm.
And beyond the disruptions, what else is going on in the board level interest in the world of supply chain? Is it coming down to also coming down to things like carbon footprint and kind of responses in terms of, I don't know, let's just say like consumer buying preferences, which are maybe changing towards being more localized? What are your observations on kind of how the world is shaping out around that?
It's increasing complexity, right? Again, if you go back in time, supply chains were a cost center. Right, you're optimized for least cost. Just get it to where it needs to be at the cheapest amount. That was it. Now, what you're pointing out here, Dave, is it's not just a one thing to optimize. I have to deal with multiple aspects of my supply chain at the same time. So the least cost might not be the most sustainable. In which turn, if my consumers are expecting certain things, it's not going to sell, right? So I now have these different levels of complexity that I have to take into account. So the mindset has shifted, and correspondingly, the tech has to shift to be able to handle the increase of complexity.
Right. Well, that's a lovely little bridge into Google's engagement with the world of supply chain then, and the sort of tech that you're seeing deployed. Obviously, it's a very data-rich field. But what kind of implementations have you seen that really resonated and you thought, actually, the impact we've had there is significant?
Yeah. So, a couple. One of the big stats that you see is that 65% plus of companies don't even have visibility of their supply chain.
Really? It's that high?
It
is
so
critical, and it's...
It is so critical,
that is a surprising number.
But again, you think about the complexity and how far extended.
Oh, you mean the edges, the onion keeps going
that's
out?
Huge.
Yeah,
that's huge, right? But even if you take just a retailer who's importing goods from Asia somewhere, I have to be able to pull that data in and understand what's inbound. I need to understand what's in transit from that inbound facility to a regional DC. I need to understand in transit from that DC to the store, then what's in the store. And that historically has grown up to come from different systems.
Yeah.
So even just tying that piece together internally of the data that you own is one thing. And then to your point, well, I'm going to tie this back into your sustainability point. I, as an organization, have to be responsible, not just for my own carbon footprint, but I have to ensure that my suppliers and my suppliers' suppliers, right? I have to work my way back. And I can't just say, oh, well, I don't know what they're doing. Right? It's the responsibility that ties in as well.
Right. Yeah, it's a big nesting problem, isn't it?
It's huge. And organizations, honestly, trying to figure out their inventory or their footprint on anything is one thing. They don't even know who those suppliers are. Right. So it's a big challenge.
So as part of the type of technology implementations that you're working on, is it mostly about things like pulling data lakes, data models, and then trying to create a pattern of what that supply chain looks like?
Well, and that's the starting point, is trying to get that platform of visibility, right? Then it's, well, great, now I have all this data. I'm data rich. What am I going to do with it?
Right.
And now that's where the magic starts to happen, right? We're going to sprinkle in some AI, ML, and optimization, and guess what? Now I can reduce my inventory levels, all right? I can optimize my inventory. I can ensure that I have on-shelf availability, right? I can think about how do I properly deplete aging inventory so it doesn't go to waste. And again, to your same point, I'm maximizing my revenue opportunity while minimizing waste and contributing to a more sustainable environment as well.
And how sophisticated do you think at the moment those AI implementations are? We're trying to get a sense in the episodes that we're creating this week about the sort of where the real state of the art is, like beyond the, hey, wouldn't it be great to put AI in here? It's like, where is it actually up to at the moment, and what do you see happening over, say, the next 12 months?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great pockets of AI.
Right.
That are sometimes done in silos, right? We're optimizing things all the time. Where we have the opportunity is to more optimize end to end, right? To handle the handoffs better. Frankly, that's where a lot of drag starts to occur, is in those types of handoffs, right? You think about the old telephone game. You say one thing, and by the time it gets 5 people down,
right,
it's something else.
Right.
Well, think about that in handoffs in supply chain data and optimization as well. So the same thing can be applied. So there are definitely great initiatives going on across, and I'll say all industries, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'll give a lot of examples in terms of retail or CPG,
right,
but healthcare organizations, life sciences, logistics companies. If you haven't had the chance to stop by the UPS booth here, fascinating when you talk data.
Right.
In terms of
with logistics,
the logistics.
Yeah.
But you think about tracking those packages and the number of data points that go across it. It's huge.
And that's it. I mean, that consumer experience as well with supply chain, that's matured massively over the last sort of 5 or so years, where it used to be your package will be delivered sometime next month to
within the next 15 minutes.
They'll give you like a 20-minute window these days, won't they? And it's like, that's a massive improvement. And and that's all powered by data analytics, convergence of GPS coming together with 5G networks and everything else.
Convergence.
I've said it. I've finally said it.
It has been 3 episodes, and he's finally said his favourite word.
Oh no! Were you waiting? I'm glad I could be part of it while I was here.
When he's reflecting on this week's, he'd be like, my favourite one was Paula. Just
Yeah.
because
Supply chain.
you
talked about, but it is a very good example of SAT technology, 5G. Data models getting broken down, the consumer interaction structure, it's all come together quite nicely.
Well, so you have that. Now take the consumer experience. So this is for all the supply chain folks out there, right? Take the consumer experience that we all want to have. Guess what? B2B wants that too.
Yeah, right.
And it's not quite there in the same capacity of a consumer. So there's areas of opportunity there. An organization waiting for raw material is still saying the same thing. Where's my package? And they want to track it and know... Because if that raw material doesn't arrive in time, guess what? I'm not running a production line.
Yeah, it's very expensive.
It's very expensive. So we have a lot of opportunity to take the concept of a consumer experience and pull it back into the B2B environment.
Have you got a particular case study that you think illustrates some of the opportunities better than others?
Yeah, so maybe I'll give you one which extends from the visibility point. We have a automotive organization, and if you think about building a car, right?
Lots of moving parts.
Lots of moving parts, lots of moving data, coming from multiple sources. How do I have visibility to all of that? Right? So it's pulling all of that together, gaining the visibility, and then saying, okay, now I'm sitting on a wealth of information. How do I utilize that to actually optimize my inventory levels?
Right.
And so we're seeing those types of use cases with a level of focus.
Right.
And the key is those are tangible results, right? It's not just, I think this becomes interesting in supply chain. A lot of people want to dabble in AI and just say, oh, okay, well, that's neat. That's neat. But when you're in the supply chain space, the tangibility of reducing cost, reducing emissions can be huge.
Like really significant. Yeah. Your emissions point there, I think, is very well made. The overlap between your organizational efficiency and effectiveness and actually good for the planet, it's one of those synergistic things, it's like you get better at it and actually you're creating less emissions.
They go hand in hand. And if we go back to the example of your package delivery, right? If you think through, it's a complex optimization problem, right? I have so many packages, I have so many trucks, I have so many drivers, I have commitment windows, delivery or pickup time. I have drivers that can only drive certain routes. I have certain products that can only, right. It's a lot of complexity, but that's what we look to optimize, right? You optimize that, you reduce trucks, you reduce miles driven, you reduce emissions, you reduce cost. It's a winning all around.
It's like the in maths terms, like the traveling salesman issue, which is a mathematical problem that is very difficult to solve. And only now are we seeing AI sort of rise to improve that efficiency, as you say, because so many factors can affect any given day.
Right. Now throw in the fact that you have a weather storm, or one of your drivers decided not to show up because they were in Vegas for the night. Who knows, right? But now how do I continuously re-optimize that, right? That becomes a key area.
Yeah, the on-the-fly changes to external conditions.
Exactly.
So when you sort of crystal ball gaze, I don't know, 12 months, 24 months ahead, do you see very material global changes in supply chain thinking? What does that look like for you, having spent not only your education but now all of your career in it? What do you think the next 10 years look like?
Oh, it's gonna progress even faster. Like I said, I think supply chains got a level of attention that we hadn't received before.
Right.
Now you mix that with the technology acceleration. It's honestly the perfect storm for supply chain in technology. So it's moving. I will also say the interest in supply chain related careers is huge.
Right.
So college students now all want to get into this as well, right? Because they're seeing twofold, not only the fact that they can grow a great career, but B, a lot of the younger generation wants to improve the world. And what better way to do that than going into a supply chain space?
Well, what a good note to leave it on. Thank you again for spending some time with us and sharing your insights.
Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
Great. And we end every episode of this podcast by asking our guests what they're excited about doing next. And that could be you're doing something in Vegas this evening, or you're seeing a show, or you're going out with some clients, or it could be something in your professional life. So, Paula, what are you excited about doing next?
Well, I will say I do want to go check out the Sphere. So we'll see about that. But
it's amazing.
I know. So you've been there. You've seen.
Yeah. We were lucky enough to catch U2 there last year, and U2. I mean, I like U2, and they were doing Achtung Baby, which is my favorite U2 album. I would say they were 3 out of 5. All right.
I think that's a bit harsh, Dave.
The Sphere was a solid 8.5 out of 5, though. So it's mind-blowingly good.
We're not on commission. I need to keep saying that, though.
We're not. Well, I am. Rob doesn't know you.
No. So I will see that, but on my way through, I'll probably have to put a bet down on the roulette table at some point. I haven't done that yet,
Roulette's
so we'll
your
see.
your chosen game.
Yeah. Well,
roulette?
You know, I have my numbers. I'm a numbers person, right? So I don't know. We'll see.
Well, look, have a great rest of week in town and a safe journey back. It's great to see you today.
Likewise. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm delighted to say that joining us is Fabien Duboeuf, the industry manager for manufacturing at Google Cloud. Fabien, great to see you. How are you today?
Nice to meet you, David. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. How's your Google Next been so far?
I think it's really great. You can hear maybe in the background the sound, but there's a lot of magic in the air. I'm not going to sing that song from the World Cup. But
I think it's a missed opportunity.
It's a really good song. There's magic in the air. Allez, allez, allez.
Yeah.
Levez les mains en l'air. Allez, allez, allez. Which is get your arms up and you see what's happening around us with all the booths and 30,000 people being here, visiting our entire ecosystem of partners and our solution demonstration in the showcase. It's been really great with a lot of good session with our customers, and I can be pleased. It's a lot bigger and better than last year.
I was actually going to ask you, like, what progress do you perceive between San Francisco last year and Vegas this year?
Well, that's one thing. It's like we're in Vegas, so you can tell they know how to manage this large set of people.
They know what they're doing.
The logistic, fantastic. Yeah. So the experience is really good, and I can tell that there's a lot more smile. People start understanding what's happening in their industry, and they're really eager. Instead of looking like deer in the headlight of what's happening in our industry, they are really starting understanding how can I apply what I'm seeing and the benefit, reaping the benefit of what's happening.
So are you seeing an increasing usage of AI beyond, say, proof of concept level?
That's right. So last year it was like, here's what could happen, and now it's what's happening, and they're sharing. I've seen customers this morning just sharing how they're using the technology to impact their business and exchanging ideas. So this is when the rubber meet the road. You know what I mean?
Right.
Last year it was like, here's what you could do. This year it's happening, and they're exchanging, and the conversation has shifted.
The pace of that never ceases to amaze me. Actually, I compare it, in my mind, I compare it to like early days of the cloud, and there was an adoption cadence to that, which everyone was kind of at the time gasping at the speed that seemed to be moving at. But what I'm perceiving at the moment is that the AI conversation is probably moving at least twice, if not 3 times as fast as early cloud.
And I think, Dave, the speed at which AI has been adopted is only because it's in clouds. So cloud has been a foundation enabler to bring AI to bear much faster in industry. What's really nice what you're saying is the focus is arriving. So people are actually scaling this out into their enterprise and making it work for them. So thanks to cloud, we've gone even faster.
Well said. People forget that AI is actually part of the cloud stack.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a separate technology. It's part and parcel of the era of cloud and the cloud stack, isn't it?
Well, that's very true. So I remember Justin Trudeau that would said, the speed of change has never been this fast, yet it will never be this slow ever again.
Yeah, that's right.
That's incredible, but it's scary because it is changing now with Gen AI day to day. So when we start talking about a technology that we developed a few weeks or months ago, it's almost becoming obsolete and you have a hard time keeping up. So you really have to stay on top of it, understand how it's going to impact your business, and start deploying it quickly before you fall behind from the competition.
Yeah, I was asked a question in an interview earlier today about what would you advise organizations to do, particularly going into some economic headwinds that we're seeing at the moment. And my advice was, don't stop, because if your competitors keep going, not only are you going to fall behind the period at which you paused your investment, but they are going to move increasingly quickly away from you.
Very true, and it'll be really hard to catch up. That's true.
Exactly. So let's move on to the area you specialize in manufacturing and production operations. Just for our listeners that are not deep in that world, how do you describe and define production operations?
So for the production operation, we're looking into what's happening at the shop floor level. Mm-hmm. So we're starting with the equipment, collecting data out of the equipment, and making sure that not only we make sense of that data and delivering insight of what's happening on the equipment level or the production line or the plant in general, even build a control tower of multiple plants worldwide if you have a large enterprise. But the more interesting piece of this is to really help correlate that equipment data to the rest of the enterprise, to be able to explain why you might have some bottlenecks or inefficiencies in your process. And this is where Google is really good at. It's going to look at a lot of different systems from your ERP, PLM system, MES system, and correlate it to the equipment data to make sense of what's happening. And we call that a ubiquitous augmentation in order to deliver insight to the users and the worker, the employees.
And is that a system that you can actually maybe use all that data to create a digital twin and then play with the production system as the twin and then work out what the most optimum configuration is, and then you can deploy that? So de-risking the testing and allowing you to understand how it's going to impact as it goes live.
Yes. And then, so the digital twin is it's a good word, but it represents a lot of things.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen is we want to make sure that we deliver on the promise of Industry 4.0, because PLM, MES, and QMS, all of these systems have been promising to be able to deliver this insight. But the best way of doing this is leveraging Gen AI to query that data that resides in this system and deliver an answer. That's an accelerator. So it's almost a new operation system.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And let's talk about what cloud is bringing to that situation. We had a little chat about the fact that AI is part of the cloud stack and things like that. So if you step back in the world of production operations pre-cloud, what are the first impacts of cloud on that particular space? Because obviously there's been so many impacts from technology on production operations through physical robots and early compute. What did cloud bring to start with, do you think?
So cloud really enables you to gain speed and agility. because prior to cloud, you had all these siloed systems deployed on-prem. Best possible scenario was to make sense of what's happening manually in your factory. And then the cloud enables you to bring the power of AI and machine learning to solve some problem and correlating that data to the rest of the enterprise. So that's really the magic of cloud and AI, is to bring and actually create a knowledge platform for the enterprise. Now, I remember 15, 20 years ago, selling a knowledge platform to engineering and manufacturing companies, but they were having a really hard time querying the data that was residing in all these siloed systems that were developed completely disconnected.
Well, not only that, but no consistent data model, no consistent way to extract the intelligence from the data.
Missing all sorts of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
No scalability. Yeah. So let's say you want to deploy a new production line at multiple plants. Very difficult to do when your MES system has to be deployed on-prem and it's not communicating to the rest of the enterprise. So no standardization.
Hard to scale your actual physical business when the constraint sits within the technology that needs to power it, yeah?
So when you don't have scalability, you're lacking speed, you're lacking agility. So talk about a connection to your customer experience. Yeah. That's going to create a lot of frustrations on delivery.
So what do you see now? I guess, first of all, are we past the days of being constrained by our own data? Or is there still a heavy lift to do between having the data in your underlying systems and actually leveraging that data?
So I think there's still a lot of constraint because we still work with the humans.
Yeah.
And we have to deploy the solution,
Humans are normally the slow part in the system.
Usually they are, yes. I just get out of a meeting.
You should try working with Dave. He drags us all down.
I can tell.
Pride myself on it.
No, but this is the issue. Is you still have to deploy. So the primary blocker or hurdle is to overcome the adoptions of change. Okay. So when change comes, a lot of people are resistant to change because you're changing their habits and their routine.
Yeah.
And especially in the manufacturing world, engineering world, things have been reliable, de-risk it. Now you're introducing me a new technology. How is it going to really impact? So you really have to focus on the why.
Yeah.
And then you remove the hurdle slowly by finding the change agent. But this is something you're going to have to overcome to make sure that you can deploy at scale.
Yeah. And do you think leadership of organizations are now properly engaging with that issue? We were talking to one of your colleagues in the last conversation in this episode about supply chain. And she was remarking that supply chain used to be the sort of dirty thing in the basement that was really only there to sort of try and wring cost out of. But actually now that's elevated up to the boardroom, partly because of the COVID effect and supply chain becoming very evident, but actually because of the changing nature of customer expectations, where they are maybe expecting organizations to have very sustainable supply chains or local supply chains. And it's become a much richer conversation that leadership and boards are now fully engaging in. Do you see a parallel there?
I couldn't agree more. So my guess you're talking to Paula.
We were indeed.
That's right. Okay. But you're right. So the CEOs today, especially Q1 of 2024, they are talking about Gen AI, supply chain, inflation, war, recession. Gen AI and supply chain were not a part of the conversation of the boardroom 5 years ago. Following the pandemic, things has completely changed.
But they're all macro subjects. So war, all the things you just went through, inflation, war, they're like the big things. And now Gen AI and supply chain are seen as that macro conversation as well.
AI is literally the same level of concern as all of that other stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Crazy, it's just arrived.
And it used to be digital twin, like you mentioned earlier, or digital transformation. But now they found the mechanism. It's around the supply chain and Gen AI, you're going to be able to enable all these work stream or these promise that Industry 4.0 has been promising for the past 20 years.
It's that critical enabler that lets you get over a complexity hurdle and do things that you've always wanted to do, and it's unlocking potential, isn't it, I think?
Well, you finally found a mechanism that is user-friendly.
Yes.
That's-
Accessibility
right.
to it as well. Yeah.
Accessibility of the data.
Yeah, indeed. And when you bring all of those threads together, I know you're passionate about the relationship between, production operations and customer experience. So bring those threads together for us, and kind of give us a position on how it impacts positively or negatively customer experience.
Yeah, so I'll try to make it brief. Because customer experience can be a really broad topic depending on who the customer is.
Yeah.
If it's a consumer or if it's another business doing business with you, buying parts and product from you. So every improvement you're going to make at the production operation is going to impact the customer experience. Whether you're giving more visibility into what's happening in the production process to your customer so that they know when to expect the part, when they're expecting their delivery, okay? That's going to impact positively the customer experience. If you are gaining agility and speed in your production, you're going to reduce the product development cycle. So then you're going to be able to deliver that product and innovate faster on the next iteration of that product, okay? So all of this is going to impact the customer experience. But then let's go further. Now with Gen AI and every hardware company is becoming a software company, you are now creating digital capability that you're delivering to your user or your customer. And then that means you do two things. You're meeting your customer where they are because they're all looking at leveraging digital capability.
Right.
Look at what Mercedes is doing in the in-car vehicle experience. It used to be tweaking a button, and now it's all digital and you can communicate with your car. And you saw the great announcement that we had earlier yesterday. But then you also create a chance of generating additional revenue. Instead of just selling a piece of hardware, now you're generating revenue in terms of digital service.
Yeah.
And so the customer experience can be improved greatly by the way you service your customer, you maintain your product, you understand better the entire ecosystem,
It's an amazing change. You take the car as an example. Manufacturer used to make the car and it went away and they never knew how that car was used. Now there's this umbilical cord that connects you to the customer. You know exactly what the customer's doing, the digital revenue from them. And the feedback loops now come back so they can improve the in-car experience associated with how people are using it. And that's a very powerful, rich source of data they can now use. Yeah,
it's huge. So now you're connecting your digital twin, virtual world that you design the product, build the product, to how it's being used.
Yeah.
And then you feedback that quality and data insight loop to the designer for improving the next version of that vehicle.
Yeah, and it's a thing that didn't exist for this sector, and now it's absolutely critical to the success of the vehicle of the future, isn't it?
That's it.
Yeah.
And what's your take on how far beyond concept and into implementation we are, like as an industry generally? Is it, if maturity level 5 is an organization operating in exactly the way that you two guys have just been describing, and maturity level 0 and 1 is kind of proof of concepting, probably done some cloud, blah, blah, blah. Where do you think we are on the journey as an industry?
So great question. Going back to every manufacturing company is different. There are some early adopters to the laggard, but last year there was a lot of announcement. And this year I was telling you, I hear customers talking to each other and comparing what they've built, what they are doing. So we went from 0 to like the speed of change, accelerating so quickly, to 3, 4, some of them are advanced, and some have not even started yet. So it's a wide range, but we are going a lot faster than we used to do.
Right.
And this is why there is no time to rest. So coming to a next like this with where we are today in Las Vegas, it's often an eye-opener. And by the way, I want to mention that we built a smart factory in Chicago,
Right.
where you can actually see all of this in action. So because these conferences are great, but they're temporary. We're here for 3 days. It's like mayhem, chaos. So many sessions. You can come to Chicago and actually see it live in action, and it's a permanent showcase.
Right.
And that I'm a great believer in seeing is believing.
Yes,
and showing people, it opens their mind to like, I never knew if I hadn't seen such riches.
Well, thanks for saying that. It looks like we've practiced this before because I lived in Missouri.
Rob's very accomplished at blowing smoke.
He's Very well done.
He's like a professional at it.
So
It's a well-honed
I
skill.
lived in the show me state for 24 years.
Yeah.
And I worked with manufacturing company for 20 years. And it's all about show me. An engineer wants to, he loves the pretty slides that we offer, but when you see it, you touch it, you can see it and it's tangible, it becomes real.
It really does.
It becomes real.
And I think when you're talking about something like AI, which actually, it still feels like San Francisco. Have I done it too?
But he's done it. The magic in the air.
It's not just wrong.
We've connected.
Yeah.
You actually have to play that song when you do the magic in the air. That's how I call it.
Yeah,
This
right.
is why I always joke when they come in and visit the showcase. I say, you're going to actually see magic in the air. And I play the song and everybody's like, what is he doing? And then they actually see it.
Yeah.
And it becomes real. It's just a aha moment. I've had customers that are already using our technology. They come and see it, and like, we had no idea you could do all of this.
Yeah. It's an interesting point you raise. Not only because it makes the almost science fiction become tangible and real, but actually what it also does in a more practical and pragmatic way is it allows people to actually understand how to implement some of this stuff. Because actually there is so much of it, and the pace of innovation is so fast that it's actually difficult sometimes to just go, oh, yeah, I could actually do 3 or 4 more things with this thing that I've already got, and it's massively improves the outcome that I'm getting.
Well, and it can be scary. So in order to adopt that change, you need to understand it and rely on experts who can actually deploy it. So leveraging the partner ecosystem that you see behind us is going to be key if you don't have the resources, especially when you go into the small, medium-sized business that maybe are not as digital savvy as the larger corporations.
And that's a very good point about the size. People often forget how big SMEs are to the actual global economy. And it feels like all the enablement and the heavy lifting that's being done with the sort of announcement, suddenly this is becoming accessible to a whole new area of industry that couldn't afford to access it before, or couldn't afford the time to be able to invest in it to get it to go.
Yeah, I think in the US, there's 246,000 manufacturers. 4,000 of them are large corporations with more than 10,000 employees.
Yeah.
So it tells you 80% of the economy relies on these small and medium-sized business. Now, the good news is that these are really familiar with Google Cloud technology because they use and adopted Google, Workspace and all that things. So it's an easy entryway for us to come and support them.
Yeah.
Well, just maybe as a conversation closer, I wouldn't mind just getting your take on Google's differentiation in terms of the approach it's taking with AI. Like every airline magazine you open today is talking about AI. So what's putting Google at the forefront, do you think?
That's right. So a lot of the conversation and the news that you see out there is around models.
Yeah.
And I think the differentiation for Google Cloud is to talk about the entire stack that we provide, coming from the way we build our chips, we design the chips, we lay out the infrastructure, the network, and then we build our solution on top of this chip that were designed for the purpose of running AI. And then after that, we offer you access to our large language model, whether it's Gemini or other third-party models. And then you can manage a model garden to be able to leverage the right LLM for the right use case. So you can see it's a little bit of a different approach because we have an open platform. We'll meet you where your needs are and then deliver on the promise and keep in mind security and sustainability as a key to what we offer.
Great. Well, Fabien, thank you for sharing that with us, and thank you for the insight into the complex world of production operations. It's good to see you today.
You're very welcome, Dave, Rob, and Sjoukje. Appreciate the time, and I hope you'll play the song.
Oh, we will, no, straight after. Absolutely.
Well, now we end every episode of this podcast by asking our guests what they're excited about doing next. And that could be you're in Vegas, you're doing something fun tonight, or you're just dying to go home and see the faces of your family again, or it could be something in your professional life. So, Fabien, what are you excited about doing next?
I was going to put those socks on that you offered me.
Yeah, they look very natty, man.
So, without kidding, I love customer conversations. So tonight I have a really nice dinner with a special customer.
Awesome.
And, it's always visiting the next plant. So I love showcase and being able to understand what's happening at the operation level. So visiting customer and spending time with them.
Cool.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, look, we wish you well for the rest of your time here.
Thank you so much.
So a huge thanks to our guests, Nigel, Paula and Fabien. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thanks also to our sound and editing wizards, Ben and Louis, our born-ready producer, Marcel, and of course to all of our listeners. We're on LinkedIn and X, Dave Chapman, Rob Kernahan and Sjoukje. Feel free to follow or connect with us, and please get in touch if you have any comments or ideas for the show. And of course, if you haven't already done that, rate and subscribe to our podcast. See you back in Google's reality soon.